Hey everybody, I'm your host Brendan. Welcome to Campus to Contracts. And we're with the agent, Mason Williams. How you doing, Mason? How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good to see you again. Another week. It's been a wild one.
Absolutely. And obviously, I'm excited to hear about everything that you have. And today's hot topic that we're going to be discussing is life before high school. That's right. I know every parent's sitting there going, what are you talking about, life before high school? Life doesn't even start till high school. Or my favorite is the parents that are like, my best life was in high school. I still want to go back. Well, you're not there, and this is a way to prepare your kids for that. We're really excited about the topic. Mason, before we get into that, I want to hear the top highlights of the life of the agent. What were your big highlights of the weekend? What were the biggest things that hit you that just made you go, damn, what a great life I have?
Yeah, I mean, life hit me fast. I know there's only 7 days in the week, but it felt like there was 10. Where do I start? Penn, my first university loss to Dartmouth. Duke, my second university, lost to Notre Dame. And then, my grad school, Duquesne University, they pulled a win out of Long Island University. So this week, actually, I had a lot going on. I had a marketing conversations and negotiations for my professional bull rider that I just signed a couple weeks ago. There was a lot of action in the transfer portal. I got some clients that I've signed to some marketing deals that are thinking about moving universities and thinking about what school they kind of want to finish out their college career at. Also, with some injuries that are going on, it's kind of hard to maneuver. So it's just been taking it day by day with those guys specifically. And then XFL USFL Merger, which we'll probably get into in another episode when they start to figure out what's going on with that situation. But the XFL, USFL merging into one league, that's huge. Changes a lot of things, gives a lot of guys another chance and another opportunity to be part of a real pro league. And word is on the street that they kind of want to replace the NFL. They still got to deal with CFL. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see where this takes us. I don't have all the answers right now, but as this develops, we're gonna hopefully have an episode that we can talk about the entire thing, what happened, what's going to happen, what's happening next, and yeah.
Well, I think the biggest thing that you said to me, besides the fact that your heart hurts for some of your teams, is the transfer portal. For those that are just tuning in, we're in the middle of football. We're not even in the middle. We just started college football. We just started the season. We're a couple games in. The transfer portal as a fan, and I'm just an avid fan that watches these games. I want to see what the kids are doing. I don't even think about the transfer portal right now. I'm so busy watching standings, seeing how kids are playing. So you're saying the transfer portal, this is an active conversation that happens amongst players throughout the season, not before the season starts, but actually during the season, before the season, after the season. When does the transfer portal, is it just an open line of communication for kids to look at where the best opportunity is for them in the future?
Yeah, so think of it this way, right? For college football teams specifically, their recruiting never really ends. They're always looking for new guys to replace and better players, because if they just start recruiting when the season is over, they're going to miss out on all the players that they were trying to potentially get for spring ball. Those high school kids that we're going to talk about in these upcoming episodes that need to work on their academic speed, their graduation speed when they're in high school, so that they can leave high school in the fall semester and start college in that spring semester. Very crucial point for a lot of these high school and future college players' careers. So the transfer portal is something that these new kids are going to have to deal with every single year. What players from other universities are moving into those spots, and how does it affect the ability for these universities to now offer some of those spots to high school seniors, high school juniors in the future?
So there's no agents in college football. There's nobody
Correct.
Who's advising them. There's no contracts to worry about. So a student athlete, we'll use that term as loosely as we can, the student athlete that decides this or makes their decision to be in a transfer, they can actively talk to another team's recruiting arm, I would imagine. They aren't just making this conversation with them and their parents. They obviously don't want to tell the coaching staff they're with that, hey, I want out. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. What is allowed?
So for the transfer portal, there are old rules where you would have to ask your head coach for permission to transfer out of the university. The transfer portal has taken that away. The transfer portal has given these players the ability to get their name on sort of a database. Think of it like a Excel sheet full of names, players, height, weight, position of these players that want to leave their current university. These players, once they are on this transfer portal, it allows coaches from other universities to reach out to these players, to actively talk to these players, to recruit these players, to get a feel of these players. And then these players are then, going through the same recruiting process, if not a more complicated one than that they did in high school, leaving high school and going into college. So the transfer portal has given basically more life to some of these college athletes who, for many reasons, don't like the university they're at. Maybe they're not playing. Maybe they're not getting along with their coach. Maybe they had some academic issues. Maybe they had some discipline issues. Whatever the reason is, the transfer portal is giving these players some power and giving them the ability to really make another decision and possibly turn their career around.
Are there any notorious or interesting stories of kids who were in the transfer portal and decided to go back to the original university? Is that something that happens quite often as well?
Not quite often, but it definitely does happen. I've even had teammates that have been through that. There are players that go into a transfer portal and they're thinking about leaving, and maybe that school convinces them to stay, or maybe they change their mind and they feel like that the offers that they had when they're in the transfer portal just didn't match up to the current school that they are at. So there's many different reasons why a player could end up coming back, but it definitely happens.
Well, I mean, we can probably do an entire series about the transfer portal as just a fan, and also as somebody who looks at your athletic life very limited. It's very limited, especially when you're looking at football or any of these sports. Giving these kids an opportunity to go after it in a different manner has been fantastic. And I can tell you, as a fan of many different NCAA sports, the transfer portal has certainly changed the landscape in all of them. And I think that helps the players. It gives them the baton in their career to say, if a coach changes, for instance, offensive coordinator moves on, defensive coordinator, whatever it may be, it gives them the opportunity to take the ownership of their own future rather than say, I was going to be a really top position player, and this new coach came in and put me into the third string, second string, what have you, and didn't give me the same opportunity as the previous coach, which was a serious ordeal. That was a serious problem. So transfer portal is interesting. The fact that you're talking about it this early on in a college football season is pretty wild. But welcome to the 2023, as they would say. Welcome to the reality of our current situation. You're
absolutely right. I mean, it is a 365-day thing now. Guys are in the transfer portal all year long. Some of them jump in for spring ball. Some of them jump in at the beginning or end of fall camp. Some of them jump in right before bowl season. There's many different times of the year where guys jump into that portal. We're definitely going to have an episode talking about the transfer portal and how it works, what happens. We're also going to, thread this in with the episodes about your junior year of high school, your senior year of high school, and how that affects your decision making when it comes to going to these universities. I'm also going to give you guys my tips on how you choose a college, especially for football athletes, why you choose a college, and some of the different routes if you feel like your high school career has held you back from maybe getting to the college you desire, or if the college you first chose was not the right choice for you that you felt and you need to make a different decision. So look for those episodes, guys, and then leave comments if you have anything else to
and I was gonna get on top of that comment. Yeah, for the folks that have been a part of a transfer portal, let's say you graduated college, you want to leave a comment for us. Give us kind of your experiences, some of your pros and cons. Mason's happy to jump on there and give you kind of some of his highlights or reasoning. And if you're thinking about it and you're a student athlete and you're just thinking about it, go fire away. We're happy to take those questions as well. Happy to have those comments. Well, let's get into the hot topic of the day, and it's not what happened this past weekend or how many flights you may or may not have missed. Mason, for yourself personally, what about this is a very intriguing topic. So just to give you a frame of reference for me as the host, I'm an older guy. I got some young kids. I know family members who have young kids. When you say life before high school, that's wild to me. I have a couple hockey players. They're not in high school yet. But the fact that as a parent or even as a student athlete, I can't think of my kids thinking of themselves as student athletes at this point. But if you're a parent and your kid's going through junior high, you're very high on what they're doing and what's going on. I'm thinking about high school. I'm thinking about what happens in high school. But for the life before high school, the fact that you need to have a topic like this is wild to me. So why don't you just jump in and say this is the reason for why we have to talk about life before high school, which again to me is like, that's crazy. It's crazy to even bring this up.
Yeah. Well, the reason is, in order to get to college, you must perform in high school. The best way to perform in high school is to be prepared for high school. This is where the life before high school comes in. You have boys that play hockey. They're not in high school yet, but they're going to be prepared to play high school hockey, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because they're already playing. They've already been exposed to the game. I can't tell you and stress this to you enough how many players, their first time playing football, period, American tackle football, is in high school, is a freshman in high school. Now, it happens, and there are some guys that are able to excel and succeed in high school football and starting your first time ever playing tackle as a freshman in high school, but majority of you guys are probably not going to be able to make it through high school, especially with all the competition that has arisen these last few years. The players are getting better, faster, stronger at a younger age than ever before. You have guys that have started club teams. You have guys that have been playing Pop Warner since they were about 5 or 6. These are the type of things that you want to start exposing your young children and young athletes too. I'm not saying that I think that playing tackle football from the age of 5 to 15 is completely necessary. Matter of fact, my brother and I started tackle football in 7th grade. And my brother, Avery Williams, that's his jersey back right there, he plays for the Atlanta Falcons right now. So it's definitely possible to not play tackle since Pop Warner or Pee Wee, that age level, for those of you who are familiar. If you're not, leave a comment and I can have another video or short explaining that. So my point in saying life before high school, you have to be prepared academically. What are your goals academically in high school? What are your goals athletically in high school? Parents, you're going to be living in Florida, California, Texas, North Dakota. Doesn't matter. You need to understand all the high schools in your area, what they're good at, what they can give your child, and what your child wants from that experience. But you need to prepare before that. 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade. These grades are very crucial in the development prior to your player entering high school. I want to shout out something that was very important for me and my brother's development as young football players. They were these camps called offense-defense camps. I'm not sure if they still exist. I believe they do. They often happen just in the summers. These are the type of camps where you put your kid through a tackle football camp. He stays about a week, and throughout the week, he learns how to tackle. He learns how to, carry the football, pass, run, catch. Very basic, standard things that are essential to all fundamental athletes. These camps... Yeah.
And when you're looking at these camps, I mean, I've also read a lot about the 7-on-7 has really grown and is really marketable. And the other thing that's really has grown and a lot more popularity is flag football as well. Are all of these for a young age? We're talking about young age children at this point.
Yeah.
Are these areas that have helped the game overall? Are these areas that have helped these kids develop quicker because there's these different competitions and they're able to be introduced to the game at an earlier age?
100%. 100%. So 7-on-7, flag football, and these young Pop Warner leagues, they all help these kids with different aspects of the game. Now, 7-on-7, definitely marketable. There are kids getting offers before high school, in high school, because of 7-on-7 tournaments. These kids are getting offers to USC, UCLA, Cal, Florida State, Florida, big schools from their performance. But their performance is also backed by their on-field in-season performance when their pads really come on. And that's what we're also here to talk about. The development from flag football and 7-on-7 is supposed to be used to help translate onto the football field in the fall. But you do need to start getting your player, getting your student athlete used to contact with other kids. That is very crucial, because when you step into high school and you start playing with kids who have already been exposed to this, you're going to be behind the 8 ball, and that's not what we want for you. We want you to be exposed to it. You don't have to overexpose. You don't have to play multiple seasons, but you need to be prepared and you need to know how to tackle for safety reasons first, but so you can be as successful as possible, because high school is still about development, and those coaches are going to develop your child into the player that they need to be. However, if you want to give yourself the best chance of getting that scholarship by, say, your sophomore, junior, senior year, you need to start working on this immediately. You need to start working on this in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, not waiting until 9th grade to have the first pair of shoulder pads put on their shoulders.
And the hitting, I completely understand. When you first take that hit, or you're a kid, I mean, that's one of the things that I have seen also in hockey and as well as football. I mean, hockey is you're not allowed to check for a certain age for many, many reasons. Obviously, kids still run into each other. They still have some contact, but checking doesn't really start happening until you're a little older in older divisions. So when you're in football, I can understand that. Again, becoming a freshman, if you've never played the game of football, you're worried about that first hit. And let's just say I go and I've never played, and my first experience is I'm actually getting hit by somebody who's been playing for a couple of years. I would imagine they would deliver a hit in a style that they've been trained to hit, so it's a much harder experience for the kid who's never experienced it, as opposed to like, hey, we're all learning this camp together, if that makes sense.
Yes, because what I'm going to try to consult on through this channel is trying to get to the varsity level in your high school as fast as possible. Trying to get to the highest level of high school football as fast as possible. Now, when you talk about showing up freshman year, and there's kids that have already been playing and they've been taught how to tackle, there's particular things that I always look out for, and I always say, especially to my younger athletes and some of my friends who have kids now, your first year of football, your first year of any tackle football, the kid has no idea what's going on. You don't know how to hit. You don't know how to take a hit. You don't know the level of violence that you're ready to experience. But your second year, that's when you feel invincible. And it's actually not a good thing. You feel like you've done it before. You feel like I'm used to this and I can take this and I can take more than I took last year. And I'm more developed. And this is a false sense of security with the sport. Your third year is when things start getting more realistic, when you start growing into your body and understanding tactics and understanding how to properly tackle and how to properly protect yourself and how to properly run through people and tackles and all of that stuff. As time goes on, just like you said, checking doesn't happen until you get older. Then you get more advanced and you understand how I need to tackle people. There's multiple types of tackles that they teach you, vice tackles, across the shoulder tackles, complicated things that we don't need to get into on here. But the point is that the more you get exposed to it, the more comfortable you get with it. And once you get comfortable with the physical part of the game, the rest is a lot easier to actually control. And that's the point. Life before high school is to get comfortable with what you're going to be walking into in high school. You don't need to be the best player on the field as a freshman, but you do need to be one of the more comfortable players on the field.
And that's a very key point. to me, because there's a baseline of understanding a sport. There's the baseline of I can tackle, I know I'm a wide receiver, I know I can run some routes, versus I'm more comfortable with what a defense looks like. I'm more comfortable with where these players are going to be. And again, I also think, to your point, I played a lot of sports when I was younger. I always found that when I was comfortable or lackadaisical, and the effort that I was bringing was when injuries always came about. So when I thought, oh, this isn't going to be that big of a deal, the competition didn't look that bad, you start taking it easy. That's when you roll an ankle, for instance, or you just don't take it as serious, and then suddenly you're taking an elbow where you shouldn't because you're just not in the right position and you're not in the right frame of mind. So when you were going through these drills as a younger man and developing, what would you say would probably be the biggest? When was that experience for you to get comfortable? How long did it take for you as a kid to get comfortable? Because it's easy for me to look at you. I mean, you went to Division I, you played college football, you're highly recruited. I can say, oh, you just developed early, Mason. You just were a unique human being, and there's just not many people like you at all. And you would argue there's a lot of people like me in Division I. So how did you get comfortable? When did that click for you? And what was that experience like for you to get comfortable in your own shoulder pads?
Yeah, it definitely happened, I would say, around year 4 or 5 of me actually tackling. And year 4 or 5 for me was actually sophomore year of high school, of actually tackling. Like I told you guys, those offense, defense camps, those summer camps, those visits to colleges that I hopefully wanted to play for, that hosted camps for kids where they would tackle each other. Those were just, stunts of a week at a time or 3 or 4 days at a time. But they were so vital in my development and comfortability when it came to hitting other kids. It was times where I was able to register the on-field food chain, if you will, knowing that, hey, this guy's bigger than me. It's probably unlikely that I could hit him the same way as I can hit a guy who's more so my size or smaller than me. These are things that players need to understand and adapt to on the fly in games. And that's the point that you have to get to prior to getting to varsity in high school, so that you can be the best player you can be and get those scholarships. Because if we want to get to the contracts, we got to get to college first. And if we want to get to college, we have to excel in high school. So comfortability for me, year 4 or 5, no question. That's when I started to know how to tackle for myself, because everyone tackles differently. They certainly teach you how to properly tackle, but the way you go about it, the mental, the comfortability, your body, and your favorite style of tackling, if you will, definitely a unique thing. But it takes time, and it takes season after season after season to get that into sort of a second nature type of deal. Think about this. Go ahead.
You go ahead. No,
I was going to say, the season is just during the fall. You spend more time not tackling throughout the year than you do tackling, right? Especially live. So that's why you need so long to get those reps in, because you're not playing football year round like basketball or soccer or any of these other sports. Football is just one season.
And to me, I think if you're a junior high kid, if you're a high school kid, you're listening to this, 4 or 5 years it took you to get comfortable with it. I mean, if I'm a kid listening to that, because that's the other thing, we have this misperception. When you see the good players play, you think it was just natural. It's so easy to just say, oh, that my favorite line that announcers always say, that kid's a natural. And they don't ever say, well, what was your biggest fear, or where did this come from? Because at the end, they're a natural because of all the practice, because of all the hard work that no one saw that person, that kid, commit to. So if you're a junior high kid and you're feeling uncomfortable, even a freshman, if I'm hearing you say it took me 4 to 5 years to get comfortable, and now as a parent, if I'm like, well, I don't want my kid to play tackle football, I want him to wait as long as possible, even though he wants to play it, to your point, getting into those camps earlier, because if it truly takes 4 or 5 years to really get comfortable. And the other point that you made that was really critical is the size difference. And I see this all the time, especially, in hockey, it's really easy because you think you have skates, you can skate up to anybody. But you're 100% correct. A defensive tackle, a bigger kid on the line, and you're not as big, or a linebacker, and you think you can do something. I mean, you got to know when to take on that battle. And if you're going to take on battles that are not correct for you, not only are you going to hurt yourself, but you're in likelihood going to frustrate your coaches, because then you're not performing the way you want to perform, and they're not expecting as much from you. So the 4 to 5 years is a big deal to me to hear from you. I mean, I've always thought, as somebody who didn't play tackle football, and I always watched it, and I tried out for a team here or there, but at the end of the day, the hitting I was not ever comfortable with. So I always just thought, oh, these kids are they're just more comfortable. They just understand it. But to your point, it's because they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. They know what to expect. They know what to anticipate. And that's a big deal.
And it is definitely the highest advantage that Pop Warner football has, because those kids are coming into 7th and 8th grade already knowing how to tackle, or at least being comfortable with body-to-body contact and physicality. That's the biggest problem. How do I do this? Like, you're always going to have moments in your entire career, from before high school through the NFL, where you're getting more comfortable with your body as you put on more muscle, you gain more speed, you get more football IQ. There's a lot of things that start to change the way you play. But that initial comfortability with being able to tackle and get tackled, that 4 to 5 years.
So if you're a parent, if you're a parent of a kid and you're and your kid really is excited about football, wants to play football, playing flag football, playing 7-on-7 drills, you're these week camps that you're talking about, these week-long camps where you get introduced to tackling. As a parent, my concern is who's running them and who's going to teach them properly. Because the last thing you want to do is have somebody who, oh, I know how to do this, and then your kid's learning the wrong technique, which is a really bad thing. How do you know as a parent where to go, or who's teaching these kids, and are they teaching them the right way?
Well, it does come to your personal due diligence. You're going to have to look into these coaches. Most of the coaches from offense, defense, they were all actual football coaches, had actual great playing resumes, as well as just have been part of the game for such a long time. I did have the added benefit of my own father being a former college and pro football player. So he definitely taught me a few things, but even he was taught how to tackle a lot different than how I was taught, because there's a lot of different rules, a lot of rule changes on how you can actually tackle someone. So my point about the comfortability isn't always so much about the technique, because when I started playing tackle football, the rules were completely different than by the time I was a junior in high school. I couldn't even tackle the same way. Wow. In high school, that's where you rely on choosing a good high school, where you want to see the development of the players and what's going on. These are really key things that you parents need to look out for, because these coaches are going to be responsible for laying the foundation for your player's college career. That's what high school's for. High school is for the foundation. Now, you do need to prove yourself in many different ways, but it is the foundation of that kid's techniques and how that kid plays and the type of motor and attitude he has around the game. That's where high school it succeeds, excels. It prepares those kids for what's to come.
And as parents, when you're looking at high schools and you're looking at coaches, again, doing your research, I think, is extremely important. And again, a lot of parents, I'm sure, can have these parent groups. There's lots of social media sites that you guys can talk about those things. And then I think that's where you get the true essence of a good program versus a not so great program. As far as academics are concerned, I mean, you're looking at junior high kids, the GPA doesn't really matter. According to a lot of people, obviously, it depends on what parent is talking to what kid, but I mean, it doesn't really count till you get to high school. So, I mean, when you're talking about academics and looking at it from a junior high perspective, why would you look at it so soon as opposed to just letting college or high school kind of come to you?
Well, how do you get into high school? Outside of athletics, most of the time you cannot recruit when you're in high school. So they're going to have to take someone with a good GPA. 7th and 8th grade, I think, is when parents need to really buckle down on GPA. So if you're a guy like me who went to like a lot of schools, right? So, kindergarten, 1st grade, then 3rd grade was a new school, 6th grade was a new school, 7th grade was a new school, and then 9th grade was a new school, then finished out my high school career. you're going to have to really have a good GPA every single time you choose to go to a new school, because those schools aren't just going to accept you just because you're of age, right? Even more critical for specifically student athletes that are trying to go to a specific high school with a specific coach, specific program. And most of the time, just speaking from California experience, you're probably going to want to go to a Catholic school to go play your high school football. Those schools are not letting anyone in. They try to help guys, but you're going to have at least a 3.0 plus GPA to get into those schools and not have any issues. Obviously, the higher the GPA, the better, but that's just a starting reference. Anything below a 3.0 GPA, it is true, it sounds cliche, but that's just not, you're not helping your case whatsoever.
What I like to tell young students, I got 2 young students, and I like to tell my kids and other young students is the teacher is not an enemy. Form a relationship with the teachers. Ask them when they have study time, study hours, things of that nature, or better yet, just ask them questions of how I can improve the grade. The teachers want to help you improve the grade. If you avoid the teacher, or worst case scenarios, if you're scared if I talk to the teacher, they're going to find out I don't know as much as I think I know. The teachers know where you're at. Having the conversation with the teachers and teaching a kid in junior high or teaching younger kids to have that conversation will only benefit them in high school, in my opinion, because in high school, it's only better for you to have that relationship with a teacher who wants you to get a good grade. These teachers want you to succeed. It's kind of why they're there. So to me, I continue to harp on, and it's hard when you're young, you look at the teacher, they look, it's a totally different dynamic, but it's important to have those sessions with the teacher, talk to them about that forming that relationship and not being scared to talk to a teacher. Is that something that your parents kind of instilled in you, that you could bring up something to the teacher at any time, or to have that kind of conversation with a teacher if things were going the way you wanted?
Yeah, it was definitely told to me, especially by my mother, when I was in middle school and even 6th grade, 5th grade, but it didn't hit me until I got to college, unfortunately. But I agree with you 100%. Talk to your teachers, ask for help. A lot of times they're going to be more elated that you asked than they are to be helping you.
You are alive. You care.
Yeah,
you really care.
You do care. And having support in your school is extremely important. But again, this goes towards your life before high school. You need to establish this comfortability level with your teachers, who will then in college become professors. In middle school, ask for help. Understand what's going on. You have to train your student athlete to be committed to not just their on the field study, but off the field study, because they're going to have to be watching film off the field as well, just like they're going to have to be reading the books outside of the classroom. So those 2 skills need to be harnessed prior to going to high school, because it's just only going to make high school easier. Because by the time you get to high school and by the time you hit junior year, they're only going to be thinking about football. You're only going to be thinking about football. So get ahead. Life before high school, freshman year, get ahead. Sophomore year, get ahead. And then magic is going to start happening for you.
I always found when I was going through high school and seeing teachers and students have a relationship, or from a standpoint of, hey, I need help with this, or hey, I need that, or they became kind of buddy because they were on a sports team or whatever. I'd never fully understood. It wasn't a buddy because they were on a sports team. The sports coaches encourage the players to talk to teachers. Because at the end of the day, to me, it's not just the teachers. What if you go to one of those weekly sessions and you're not getting it? And you're getting frustrated, you're not tackling the right way, the coach keeps pulling you aside. It's really great to be able to have that voice and to encourage your young athlete to have a voice, to be able to ask those questions and not be shy about it. Or if I say something, I don't want to disrupt practice, or if I say something, I don't want to disrupt the classroom, or I don't want people to think that I'm not as smart as I am, or I don't want people to think that I don't know this. Being honest about those things is a real great developmental skill that you can use for the rest of your life in the workplace, wherever you're at. Because if you don't know it and you pretend, that's how you get fired in the life. In a real world scenario, if I give you a task or someone who's an employee gets a task and they're pretending they could do it and they don't do a good job, sooner or later you're just going to say, I have to let this person go. They don't know what they're doing. And it may just be they didn't ask the right questions. And asking the right questions, I think, is such a key to success in life. So encouraging young student athletes to do this with their coaches, with their teachers, will only benefit you as you go further on in your life to make a better life for you, which is at the end of the day, in my opinion, that's why you're helping. That's why you're doing the role you are, is you want these kids to end up having a better life than they thought they could and as best of life as they can and to be smart about it. So
yeah, again, you're right. It's just so much about their preparation and eventually it's going to get tough and parents, you're not going to be able to hold their hand anymore. And especially in college, because again, high school is what's setting the seed. It's planting the seed for the type of player that they're going to be in college. And that's what all this is about. But you need the preparation for high school as well. So do not think that you can bank on high school being the necessary preparation that it takes for your player to just go to college. Yes, it can happen. But we're here to talk about the most efficient way to do all of this.
I think that's a real key in the whole conversation. Getting your kids in camps is important. Making them feel comfortable is important. And I just think at the end of the day, if you're an active parent, if you care, not only about your child's educational habits, but also about what their extracurriculars are and what they really, really enjoy, and you're listening, I think that goes much further than any coach or any teacher. And yes, there's kids who have natural abilities and don't have the parental support that you would want. But if you're a parent, you're watching this and you're caring about your kids, start looking at those camps. Start thinking quarterly for your kid. Next 90 days, what's the plan? The next 180 days, what's the plan? Where do they want to get there? How do they get from point A to point B? And again, a lot of people are like, surprise, it just happens. And I love the fact that it's not a surprise. You can plan it. You can be an active member and participate in your future, in your kid's future. If you're a kid, you can participate in that. And if you're a parent, you can help participate in that and help encourage and help provide in those areas that a lot of times, a lot of parents have never been on this road, so they don't know what it's like. You were very blessed in the fact that you had a father who went down this road, so he kind of understood that. So you have like generational knowledge about what it takes to get to that level. So for the kids that are watching, please leave a comment about how soon you started, when you got comfortable with hitting, when you got comfortable with football in general. And then also the other thing that I think is really, I would love to hear the kids say when it clicked. Like, when did 11 players coming together to play the sport together, when did that make sense to them? Like the defense calls, what a safety position, what the corner's doing, what the linebackers are doing, offensive line, what they're doing. Those are all coordinated positions, and a lot of people forget that. And when that clicks for a kid, to me, when I see it happening, it's fantastic. You're like, he finally got it. He finally understands this is bigger than just him. So to me, those are big deals. I would love to hear some comments about some of those sessions. To wrap this episode up, from what I would like to know, from the generational, your father to you to all of the listeners here on Campus to Contracts, what would the biggest top items that you say was just passed on without even your parents really thinking that it was that big of a deal?
Man, so I'll give you guys one saying, and my mom, when she sees this, she'll probably start laughing when I tell you guys, but organization is the first step to getting it done. Being organized, being prepared, knowing exactly what you're going for is the first step to getting your goal accomplished. And you talked earlier about how the parents can be involved. The biggest way a parent can be involved is helping their student athlete make the correct choice on what high school to go to. What high school to go to after you've prepared them for football, after they've been comfortable with contact, after they've been comfortable with talking to teachers and getting their academic prowls in order. Choosing the correct high school is something that is probably one of the greatest things my parents did that they had no idea that they were doing. helping me choose the best high school that would eventually set me up for my college career and set me up on the type of player I became. When I was at my first high school, it was Campbell Hall in Studio City, California. Their football program shut down, actually. So I had to transfer, or I was just going to stay there and be a student, and I wouldn't be in front of you today. But when I transferred, my mom and my father chose a couple schools for us to go to choose from. We went to California Pizza Kitchen on Lake Avenue, and we had a family meeting about what high school we're going to choose and why we're going to choose this high school. That meeting was so vital to both my brother and I's career. We were too young to really realize what was going on, right? We were choosing what's going to basically set the foundation for us when it came to college football. We ended up choosing St. Francis High School in La Cañada under head coach Jim Bonds. Probably the greatest decision I made for my football career, and probably the greatest decision I made in my football career, because it prepared me academically and athletically for college. Ended up going to Ivy League, University of Pennsylvania. And when I say I was ready for academics, I was ready. And when I say I was ready to play football, I was ready. So my parents, my biggest thing for me that they probably don't realize until this episode was that meeting in California Pizza Kitchen where they laid it all out for us. They did the homework for us. We had no idea what was going on. You know, we kind of knew the high schools. We had some choices, but they laid everything out for us. They talked to us probably like we were a little grown, and they told us what were the pros and cons of each high school, academically and athletically, and what they think could be accomplished at each of these schools. There were pros and cons to each of them for each of the schools, but I think we made the right decision.
I mean, that's I can't emphasize that enough. What a great legacy, if you will. I always look at kids as a legacy. The children that you have are a legacy to you, because hopefully you're going to pass away before your children. That's the goal. The goal is never, that is the goal, and your kids are a legacy. When you talk about that dinner, sitting down, talking about high schools, the pros and cons to each, think about the emphasis and the amount of time your parents took to look at the details there. Think about how much time they took and looked at each of your individual skills, your skill sets, and were like, these are some of the strengths for you. Here's some of the weaknesses for you. You can't have better parenting than that, in my opinion. I would love to hear from people who have become professional athletes, heck, college athletes, high school athletes, how your parents sat you down and helped you with that. Because that never comes off well if a parent is dictating to a kid, this is where you're going to go because this will be best for you. The fact that they talked to you like that, they had a conversation where they allowed your input, you felt heard, that probably made a huge difference in how, and not only your try, but how much you efforted at high school.
Yeah, no, it was a very big move for us. My brother, he was entering high school. I was entering sophomore year. So it was that dinner was so key. Next episode, though, we are going to be discussing both freshman and sophomore year of high school. We're going to break that down, and we're going to talk about how your preparation before high school affects your freshman year and your sophomore year, what type of mindset you have to have, what's the GPA looking like, what's the athleticism level looking like, what's the work outside of football practice, outside of the classroom looking like.
Yeah, this has been a great episode for me. I got some junior high kids. They're getting ready for going to high school. We're doing a lot of these visits. We're doing a lot of these conversations. And again, I'm not looking at it from a standpoint of, my kid's going to make it as an athlete. Athlete is a secondary. I'm looking at opportunities and experience. But the biggest takeaways to me is you need to be thinking about these things earlier than you think. And if you're a parent and you're like, it will just come, it'll just happen. It's good to have the conversations as parents. It's good for having conversations as kids to recognize those things, getting them involved, getting them comfortable. That's a huge thing on this conversation, getting a kid comfortable with the future. But those parent dinners, talking about high schools, talking about program, where to put them. To your point, you're looking at where your brother's at today, where you're at today. that development that you guys were able to go, and the fact that just like building a building, you start at the ground floor and you're building a structure, and how you do that is very important. And I never thought junior high school would be that important to have a conversation about. Here we are, we're quite a ways into this podcast, and we're talking about junior high kids. So, again, any last thoughts from you, Mason, before we close out the episode, sir?
No, comfortability is the one word takeaway. Next week, I can't wait to talk to you guys about your freshman and sophomore years of high school, and help you parents prepare, help you young athletes prepare. Remember, leave comments in the comment section. We're going to read all of those, and then we're going to have some feedback based on what you guys leave, and we'll work that into some of our podcasts to come.
Well, I'm your host, Brendan. That is the agent, Mason Williams. We're very excited to have this podcast to be able to bring to you some generational wisdom, generational advice. Hats off to your parents. What a great legacy they were able to leave with you and your brother. And I look forward to, this legacy goes much further than you now that we're doing this podcast. The reach that you're able to do is really great. So as your host, as always, please leave comments like Mason was saying. We look forward to it. And we look forward to next time we get you on the channel.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.